What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 52nd episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined by my good pal and the founder of Seasoned Gaming, Ainsley Bowden. Ains, how are you doing on this fine Saturday, my dude?
I'm good, brother. What's happening? Stoked to be here, man. I'm really excited. Always love chatting with you. I said on Twitter yesterday you're one of my favorite people to chat with. That's no bullshit. That's complete honesty. So I've been looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on your first appearance on the show. So we're gonna have some fun. We got a lot of good topics to talk about. We're gonna be talking about the official death of the Xbox One, some big milestones for the Xbox Series X and S console sales. We're gonna be talking about a new From Software game. We're gonna be talking about Xbox Game Pass just continuing to deliver, and so much more. But before we dive into all of that juicy stuff, Ains, for the people who maybe don't know, give us a quick breakdown of who you are, where people can find you, and most importantly, why you love gaming.
Yeah, man. So been gaming a very long time. I founded Season Gaming with that kind of in mind, right? I've been gaming since the Atari 2600. It's been a huge kind of part of my life all the way through, outside of this small gap when you kind of get into other things and girls and cars and stuff. But outside of that, it's always been gaming for me. And yeah, so I kind of run Season Gaming, which is an outlet that focuses on gaming news, reviews, articles, etc., gaming collectibles, all that. But our big thing really is we don't monetize anything. So no ads, no paid promotions, no sponsorships. It's just content. And so we just have a really good group of people that focus on positive content for all platforms. Really, none of the nonsense. So we call it gaming news without the nonsense. So yeah, man, just love talking about games. I think you and I and many of us, right? We live and breathe it daily. So
Mhm.
it's a big part of my life, big part of my day to day, and I'm always open to talking about games with people on any front. Really, I just love it.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are here and so immersed in these podcasts is because they love the conversation surrounding games, and they want to surround themselves with people who also love that. So again, you and I have been on plenty of shows together. I'm excited to
Yeah,
have you here for this kind of one-on-one format because I know you're someone who's been playing games for a long time and
yeah,
tries to steer clear of some of the noise and the drama that can be associated
yes.
with this space, which it's an ongoing joke with me is that, if you can't have fun talking about gaming, if gaming is a point of hostility and contention for you, um, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
There's
no
something
doubt.
wrong.
No doubt. I mean, think about what we got into games for, right? As kids, most of us, is it was just fun, and you played with your friends, and you love trying new games, and you play with, try out all these new things and experience new things. Why would you want to sit there and argue about it every day? It makes no sense. We got enough to deal with in life
Uh,
that is real. You know what I mean? Games should be an escape and a fun thing for all of us. So that's what it's about.
yeah, obviously this is an Xbox centric show, so that's the stuff that we focus on. But growing up, there was no the console war drama. I remember being a kid, even when Sega was kind of, being
Like,
antagonistic with their advertising. I don't remember ever like going to someone's house and be like, you have a Sega? Come on, bro. What is
no, you just
that?"
thought about what new games you could try, right? Like, oh, I don't have that. Let me try that.
Yeah, I just remember going to my buddy's house and seeing the massive tower of Sonic and Knuckles and then the cartridge in top, and I'm like, "Whoa, what is that? That is wild."
No doubt, man. So yeah, I've been gaming, like I said, since Atari 2600. I've owned more consoles and games than I could honestly take time to say. I used to run a company actually buying and selling games like years and years ago. I was on eBay back when they did money orders. That is not a
Oh,
joke.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
so just been doing this a very long time and just love it. Own every console I buy, and play just so many different games. It's just, yeah, man, passion for me. So love it.
Yeah, love to hear that, man. A lot of amazing people here, passionate about games. We have Yodani, we have Harjeet Chani. I see fun speculation in the chat. Brian Hopkins, a lot of amazing returning folks, a lot of new faces, and I'm excited to dive into some stuff today and to give all these people a better idea of who Ains is. I want to play a little game with you. So,
All right.
step one, first part of this game here, I want you to pick your three favorite video games and or franchises. The three that are the most important to you.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of franchises, and when you said the games that are most important, now you threw me for a loop. So,
Games or
this
franchises. Three
yeah,
games or
so
franchises.
I don't think it'll be a surprise to anyone who's ever seen me anywhere that my favorite franchise is Halo. Bar none. Own and more Halo stuff and play more Halo than most for sure, and it's been an integral part of my gaming history for since day one on CE, right on the original Xbox. It made me buy an Xbox. I became a tournament player. I used to run LAN parties, and have it's been just a huge part ever since. So Halo's by far number one. I think franchise-wise, funny enough, I'd say 2 would have to be either BioShock or Gears, actually. I'm a huge Gears head as well.
Yeah, all right. Love
Um,
hearing that. Gears underappreciated,
it is.
underrespected.
It is. I don't know about you, but when someone calls it a bro shooter, it just makes me mad. Like, there's so much more to Gears. I mean, it kinda is a bro shooter,
It's
but there's
it's
so
it's
much.
bro with heart, dude.
Exactly, yes, exactly. There's more to Gears than just, the bro aspects of it, and, again, have been with Gears since the very beginning, played a ton and ton of multiplayer, used to actually know people years ago at Epic and just was a big part of that community for a long time, so love Gears. BioShock's up there as well. A third one is interesting because I don't think I have another franchise that I think about nearly as often as those 2. It's more like individual games at that point, right? Like, I think Witcher 3 is the greatest or if not one of the top, games of all time. BioShock 1's up there. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a GOAT to me. So there's many things, but because it's you and me today, and I was thinking about this, I have to go with Souls.
Yeah,
I have to go
excellent choice.
with Miyazaki. We'll call it the Miyazaki genre, right? Like, so Souls, Souls games, obviously Bloodborne, Sekiro to a little lesser degree, but still enjoyable. And of course, we'll probably touch on Elden Ring later, I'm sure. But I think those games are just become so memorable to me. And I think, I played through Dark Souls 3 for the third or fourth time a few months ago. It's one of the all-time greats.
Oof,
Yeah, it's
oof.
so, so good. Yeah, I don't know. They're on another level, man. They really are. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, people have heard me say it enough, so I'm not gonna dive into it. But yes, I agree. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. All right, so excellent picks. Transformative games in very important genres to a lot of people. So here's where things get interesting, Ains. So the second part of this game is I want you to pick one of these games or franchises that doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's gone from the world forever. And then I want you to pick another one that still exists, but everybody else in the world except for you gets to play it. You're just on the out. You can't play it ever again, but everyone else can. What's that list look like?
Oh, wow. Okay, so one of each. Like one
One you
series I want to come back, basically.
So one series
Yeah.
unchanged. It's still there for you as it is. One series that is gone off the face of the earth forever. Nobody gets to play it. And then one of those games you pick that everyone but you gets to play.
Okay, so you're gonna get a laugh out of this because we just had some jokes about this recently. But if I had to pick a series that everybody loves or can play that I can no longer play, that would be Zelda for me.
Oh,
Zelda
sorry,
is
sorry.
just.
Let me back up. Of those
Uh-huh.
three that you picked, it has to be contained within
Oh,
those
I'm sorry. I'm
the
sorry. I'm
three
sorry.
most
Sorry.
important to you.
Okay. All right. Oh my God. Now you're killing me. That's
Yeah,
horrible.
exactly. That's why things get a little interesting here, you know?
Well, I could never say Halo. So of those three, oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah, it sure is. Sure is. But
I
that's the
don't
fun
know.
of it. It's a game that friends and I would play on Xbox Party Chat sometimes.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
brought it to the show because it's interesting to see when you have to pick and choose between your favorites.
Yeah.
Where do these things really stack up?
Man, it can't be Halo, so it's got to be Gears or I guess Souls isn't. It's kind of an open franchise, right? We're talking about Elden Ring and stuff. I honestly, at this point in time, I'd have to maybe say Gears.
And it's
'Cause
hard, but yeah,
as
it's
much as it kills me, there's no way I could not play Elden Ring or whatever comes next in that vein, you know what I mean? Halo's a no-brainer, so, yeah, as much as it would kill me to not be able to play Gears 6 or whatever comes next for Gears, it would have to be that, I think.
So Gears gone. Gears is eliminated from
I'm glad
existence.
this isn't real.
Okay. So between Halo and
Uh-huh.
Souls, which
Yep.
one are you more tolerant of not being able to play, but watching everyone else play?
It would have to be Souls.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know it kills me, but Halo is just Halo is so far above. Like I could never not be able to play Halo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Beautiful. Thanks for being a good sport. Appreciate you playing that. Some housekeeping stuff before we get into the topics of today's show. For those who are unaware, watching on YouTube live or on demand, Xbox Chaturdays is now on all of your favorite podcast services. So iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. Search for Xbox Chaturdays if you want to listen to audio versions. It will be there. Now, let's get into the meat of the show here. Ains, first
Do
big
it.
topic of the week is one that kind of had some drama and some fighting associated with it, and that was the announcement that PlayStation was going to continue developing, actually producing roughly 1 million PS4s in 2022. And people
Yep.
were quick to point out that Xbox, or basically quick to point out that PlayStation had been stressing, I believe in generations, which has become a meme at this point. A lot of people
Mhm.
are quick to throw that back in PlayStation's face. And so a lot of people were going for the dunk, saying that, Xbox was the first to move along. I had come out and said, hey, hold on, Xbox hasn't officially said they're not making the Xbox One anymore. Let's not dunk so aggressively. And then, like, the next day, The Verge was like, yeah, we reached out to Microsoft and they had quietly discontinued the Xbox One in 2020. So officially now, the Xbox One is dead. So I want to take a quick moment of silence, pour one out for the Xbox One generation. Okay, moving on. So really what I want to talk about here is basically where you stand on a couple things.
Okay.
Firstly, is it a big deal that PlayStation is continuing production of the PS4 in 2022?
No, not at all. I don't know why anyone would consider this a big deal. I mean, just look at PlayStation's history, right? I mean, they did this with the PS1. They did it obviously with the PS2.
Oh yeah.
And even the PS3 kind of got that weird flappy slim model at one point. And the PS4 is what, the second or third best selling console of all time now. And I think people forget, especially when they kind of get into the weeds, as you said, with the whole Xbox and PlayStation thing. We here in the States have a um, kind of this vision of what Xbox and PlayStation are like brand wise, right? But I think what a lot of people miss is, PlayStation globally is a much more affluent brand kind of across the space than Xbox is. They just are. They're in something like double the countries. They have and there's certain countries where they really dominate, even outside of Japan, as we've seen. And I think like an extra million PS4s across the world over the course of a year, when it's already sold what 120 plus, is nothing really. This shouldn't even really make news, right? Like I think it would be weirder if PlayStation came out and said we're not making the PS4 anymore.
Yeah.
Just because their systems always sell into those types of longer years, and as they get cheaper and cheaper, and people in other countries or nations that haven't been able to kind of experience the generation, they pick it up. I don't think this is a big surprise at all. I
No.
think there was this weird correlation that people were trying to make between the lack of PS5s due to everything we all know about right now and making more PS4s. I don't think the two things are necessarily directly connected. It's just another way to support their fan base.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I thought it was weird that there was so much buzz around this and so much kind of, heated conversation surrounding this. If you look at PlayStation's history in particular, and even Xbox to some degree, there is a lot of overlap. The PS3 basically launched in 2006, and they were still making PS2s until 2012.
Yeah,
So they're
exactly.
huge overlap. And like you said, the PS2 generation was huge, but the PS4 generation was also enormous. Like,
Hmm.
it can't be understated how successful that generation was for PlayStation. So for
Yeah.
them to drop it that quick would be wild. It would just be a weird business decision when there's, with price drops, there's clearly a lot of demand. People are still going to buy PS4s. I think what's weirder is the fact that Xbox so quickly and so rapidly dropped support of the Xbox One. because
Yeah,
they had talked about their cross-generational support. They had talked about integrating cloud streaming into Xbox One consoles. So a lot of us thought that they would just continue that as like a really cheap option. You can play
exactly.
old games, you can stream newer games if you want, but they just quickly, as fast as they possibly could, it seems like, said Xbox One is done. We are moving on beyond that. And it's weirder to me that they didn't announce that officially. Like they had just released the Xbox Series X and S, and then we didn't find out until God over a year later that that's done. So
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it's kind of funny you say that because I think it's a bigger story that Xbox One was stopped at the end of 2020 than it is that PlayStation is still making PS4s in 2022.
yeah,
In fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if PlayStation is still making PS4s in next year too, because of the reasons we already said. There's plenty of markets where those consoles can still sell.
yeah.
So the fact that we don't have like a $149 Xbox One S for some of the markets that Xbox is in is kind of strange to me.
Yeah, so I guess I'll ask you a couple questions. And again, these aren't designed to be inflammatory or baity or anything like that. But
Yep.
I have to wonder if the reason they dropped support so quickly is because they were just ready to be past the Xbox One generation. There was a lot of negativity surrounding the Xbox One launch, surrounding Xbox as a brand in that period of time. And there is a lot of goodwill and momentum that was built towards the back end pretty much since the launch of the Xbox One X, but there's still that association for some people with that console, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to know if you agree with that, and also if Xbox dropping support of the Xbox One so quickly is any sort of indication that their dual console strategy is working.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the latter point there is the more kind of pertinent one. Is they have the benefit, right, of having this kind of, for lack of a better phrase, entry model into the new generation. And being digital, right, only also emphasizes the whole Game Pass conversation,
Hmm.
right? So, which is the future of where Xbox is going. So I think it's exactly that. I think you kind of already touched on it, Miles. Is the fact that they just wanted to get away from the Xbox generation. There was a lot of bad blood there. Despite, I think, especially in the latter half of that generation, I had a great time with the Xbox One and the
Yeah.
One X and, everything that kind of came along with that backwards compatibility, et cetera. It's when all that stuff really started to turn the corner to lead into what is now the Series generation. But I think if you have a 299 console like the Series S that is, obviously far more advanced, it's a better experience for consumers. It plays well with Game Pass. You're able to produce it more efficiently than a PS5 and Series X. And it's becoming obvious, especially over the last few months, as people have seen now, that the Series S was a huge, huge focus for Xbox for this generation. I think coming into it, there were people who looked at it as, oh, this is just entry level. They'll make, a few of them for people who don't want to buy the Series X. And it's like, no, I think you're missing the bigger picture of what the Series S can do globally. Again, we're talking globally, right? So it's a very different conversation there, and I think that's exactly right. So as they push people there, it's going to be interesting to see, do we get the Series S to like in the next year or two, to 249 with 6 months of Game Pass. I definitely see something like that coming just to get people into the ecosystem.
Yeah, people really kind of don't truly understand the importance of price, I think, in some capacity for
Huge.
some regions. Like in the US, depending on where you live, yeah, we can say $500 for a console, whatever. That's, I can make it work. I can justify that. There are areas where that is a huge ask. Asking someone to spend $500 on a console, even with Game Pass and its value proposition there, that is a huge barrier to entry. And we've seen Xbox and PlayStation both show that they understand that they need to have a lower price option. Like a lower price option is a critical pillar of their business strategy. And Nintendo has proven that you can be wildly successful with a console that is, quite frankly, very underpowered with the Switch because of that price point. The barrier to
Yeah.
entry for so many people is way lower. And with the Xbox Series S being the same price as the Switch, I think that was kind of the direct correlation for Microsoft is that they understand, hey, if we have a console at $300, it might not be as powerful, and that is totally fine. We're going to make sure it can run all the same games, maybe not the same resolution, maybe not the same frame rate, maybe not with ray tracing, but for some people that doesn't matter. They just want to play games, and if we can get them in the door with the Series S and Game Pass, chances are they're gonna start to understand what we're building with this ecosystem, what our
Yep.
vision is, and how we want more people playing games. And I think, yeah, like you touched on, the Xbox Series S has been a huge, important factor of Xbox.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we saw it was I don't remember exactly, but it was what the best-selling console out of Xbox and PlayStation last month, or at least for 2 months now. The Series S has been just a boon, especially over the holiday season. And part of that, as we've said, is production, right? You can
Mhm.
actually get a Series S, but the don't mistake that the price point isn't a big factor there. And people are seeing kind of all these big games, new generation games. They want a new console. What's next? Game Pass proposition. What's the easiest way to get into that? It's by far a Series S. It's just it's price and availability. I mean, when you're talking about selling a product, price and availability are a little bit important.
Yeah, and what as Lord Cognito kind of infamously coined it, the little man gets the job
Yeah.
done. Like I have a Series X in my office where I kind of primarily play games. We have the Series S in the living room, and my wife is huge into State of Decay 2.
Nice.
And I'm so shocked by how good it looks and how well it runs. Like when I come out with just cursory glance to like grab something to drink, like I see her playing that, and there's not really a huge difference at first glance between
Yeah.
performance, quality, resolution. So for her, and I think for a lot of people, that is absolutely fine. Like not having 4K isn't a deciding factor, I think, for a lot of people. And if you can save $200 and you don't care about 4K, then Series S is very appealing, I think.
Yeah, it's I think they designed it perfectly in the sense of it does basically everything the Series X does except the 4K, right? And as you just said, 4K doesn't matter to a lot of people. Again, especially once we get into other nations where a 4K TV is less prevalent. But in addition to that, when you have a proposition like a 299 Series S, right, as you just said, and I've heard many, many, many people say, is it becomes a perfect secondary console too. It's compact, it's cheaper, it runs everything. Obviously, in the Xbox ecosystem, your profile, your saves, your games, everything just transfer over. So if you go from your office to living room, etc., you can just play, you can play without even skipping a beat. And I think that's fantastic. Like before COVID happened, or kind of during, if we ever get back, I used to travel a lot for work, and I would always take my One X with me every time, to the hotel room, just because I'm always playing games. And I was like, I'm definitely buying a Series S to travel with just because it's compact, it's cheaper, it runs everything I need to run. And I think that proposition is just too powerful right now to ignore for a lot of people.
I think so. And again, as someone who just got a Switch OLED and dealt with the transfer process from one Switch to another, let me
I've
tell
heard
you,
horror stories.
I've been taking the Xbox ecosystem for granted, and being able to just seamlessly boot up a game, have all my save data just ready to go. Um, After spending several hours getting all of my stuff transferred, and then realizing that certain games cannot even be transferred when it comes to save on the Switch. Yeah, Xbox was very forward thinking with the Xbox One generation in that sense, at least. So, the Xbox One generation, as many people associate negativity with it. They were at least very forward thinking with backwards compatibility, with the future of Xbox as an ecosystem. And thankfully, that's made the transition, while maybe not as exciting or hard, definitively different than the last one, it's made it so streamlined to keep and play all of your games. And I think that's, increasingly important. When the
Yeah.
more we see that, the more we are going to look at, what PlayStation is doing and what Nintendo are doing and saying, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. I've seen the light, I've seen what it can be, and now I'm upset that you're not doing this.
Yeah, yeah. I think the whole you touched on there the thing about like, okay, I've booted up my Series X or S, right? And wait, the dashboard's the same, right? The UI is the same, and it just feels like the upres version of Xbox One when you first turn it on, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that's I think that kind of derives out of generations now or decades of many of us gamers who were used to like getting a new console and it being brand new and everything,
Yes.
right? But
Yep.
but that's
Yep.
simply not how we're in a much more modern age of development now, and I think people people were trying to kind of basically, as you would say, right, like dunk on Xbox that it was the same UI. I'm like, no, that's a good thing. Like, trust me, I'm in
They spent
application
like
development.
6 years trying to get that thing dialed in, all right?
Yeah. I was like, that's a good thing. You want that evolution and for them to continue touching it up and fixing it and stuff. I mean, look at the PS5 UI, right? Like they launch it, it's pretty, but it got a lot of complaints around missing features, right? The themes are gone, all these things that you kind of got used to with PS4. Um, it simplifies a few of them, but there's a lot of other things that are just like weird, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, yeah, it's a brand new UI, and now they're going back and trying to, resolve things, add things, change things to user feedback. It's like you don't have to do that if you're just constantly evolving it. So,
Yeah, I look at the Xbox app as I think the prime example of that. If you want a
yes.
new UI, a new UI experience, they're gonna strip it to its most basic principles, and then slowly over the next few years, it'll eventually get back to what the last Xbox app was. Because we still
Yeah.
don't even have you can't even look at the store still on the
Oh, it's
Xbox app.
frustrating.
There's a lot of areas of opportunity. Let's say that on that app.
Yeah, yeah, that was a weird one because anytime a company does that, like PS5 and Sony, I get it with the console itself, but like when Xbox rolls out a new app, especially as advanced as Xbox has become technically, I'm like, how did they miss the mark with this app so badly? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it looks great, but looks are not what you want out of an app. You need functionality. I don't know how they went backwards so far. It's strange.
Yeah, well, again, we'll get there at some point, but yeah, that's kind of I think the parallel to if you do want something new, there is a lot of work that goes into that. So
Yes.
it takes some time to get it back to what it once was.
Yeah.
I want to give a quick shout out to all the amazing people tuning in, hanging out with us. If you're watching live, hit that like button, share it out on YouTube. If you are listening on podcast services, follow the show, rate the show, all that good stuff. Feed the algorithm. You know the drill. I'm gonna get to some super chats here. We got some coming in. We got Brian Hopkins who
Go.
says, "Ah yes, Dark Souls, an abusive chef's kiss." And then we got Risk It for the Biscuit. I think you guys have missed that Xbox stated they'd support the One for 1 to 2 years. It's been 1 to 2 years. Contrastly, PlayStation acted as if they'd cut PS4 day and date. All right, I guess we can quickly touch on that. Yeah, I think Xbox specifically touched on the fact that they would be supporting Xbox One console with games, with their first party games for 1 to 2 years. They never explicitly said that they would stop production within 1 to 2 years. And PlayStation, again, a lot of people point to we believe in generations. And again, I think that really shows that if you're the executive of a company, you have to be so particular and so careful with what you say. I remember people blowing up Phil Spencer because he wouldn't say definitively that all Bethesda games would be
Right.
exclusive. And I remember saying there is a very specific technical reason that he did that. That probably took them 5 hours to decide that he was going to say, some. Like the word some probably had so many conversations surrounding it for exclusivity. And Jim Ryan's statements there really showcased that, because there was no world where they were going to stop PlayStation 4 support day and date. As a company,
Yeah.
that would be a horrific business decision.
Yep. You nailed it, man. You nailed it top to bottom. Exact same thoughts. And I think people take individual words from these high level executives too seriously, right? They take them too much to heart. And at the end of the day, we always say this, but at the end of the day, these are businesses. These guys are fully responsible for the bottom line of their organizations. And, if Jim Ryan comes out and says, yeah, we're going to, we believe in generations, anyone reading that should just know that's just speak. You shouldn't take that to heart to think that every game's going to be PS5 only. No, come on. They have 100 and plus million PS4s out there. You saw what happened with Gran Turismo, right? Said running on PS5, and then it's like, yeah, it's coming to PS4 too, and so is Horizon, and so is God of War. Well, of course it is. They've got money to make.
Yeah, they got bills to pay, all right? They got paychecks to send out here. There's a huge install base for PS4, and again, it is fun to meme and dunk on people, but Jim Ryan, wanted to hype the PS5, wanted you to feel like you need the PS5. There was going to be a transformative, definitive line drawn in the sand between the PS4 and PS5 in terms of what it can do. But I don't think anyone from PlayStation ever said in any official capacity, we're not going to support the PS4. That as soon as the PS5 comes out, we're stopping support of the PS4. A lot of people assumed that, wanted to believe that, went on Twitter and yelled at fans of other consoles about that, but PlayStation as a business wasn't going to do that.
No, it's just and Jim's an interesting character in and of himself. He comes off as a much more kind of corporate individual than some others in the industry. It's really funny to kind of compare him and Phil Spencer and others, but say what you will. I don't really care here or there for Jim. But you could just tell that the statement didn't hold the weight that people thought it did. You know what I mean? To your point, his job is to get people excited about the PS5.
Yep.
And whether you like what he said, whether you think he lied, whether you think he misled people, it got people excited for the PS5.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. It's
that's
like
the sad fact of it.
when your favorite band is hyping up their new album and they say, this is the most groundbreaking material we've ever put out. This is going to
We
be
spent
heavier.
more time on this one. It's heavier and softer at the same time. It's what I mean. It's just everything.
And you listen to it and you're like, come on, dude, this ain't that different. Come on, man. Okay. Harji Chani says you have to have a big TV and sit close enough for 4K to be a factor. Not everyone has a 77-inch C1 at 55 inches. You have to be 7 feet or closer to see a difference. Yeah, again, resolution on smaller, like we look at the Switch as a prime example. I know some people were kind of complaining about the resolution of the Steam Deck, but the reality is, like, with a smaller screen, the resolution isn't different. The resolution on if you have a 1080p display, if your 4-inch screen is 1080p, your 77-inch screen is 1080p, that's the same resolution. Like, it's a lot bigger for sure, but the resolution is identical. And again, yeah, for some people, unless you, like me, I have a 27-inch display here. It is 4K, but I can't put a 55-inch TV on my desk. Like, it doesn't make sense. My retinas would be melted out of my head if I had to sit that close to a 55-inch display. So again, some people tell me, oh, you don't need 4K for a 27-inch. I just want the big number. That's really what it is. Maybe I can't see every pixel, but I know deep down what it's outputting.
I did that years ago. I bought, what was it? In the 360 generation, I bought the first 1080p LCD TV. 32-inch, so it was little. It was 1080p, and I paid like $1,000 for it. It's like, you're not even going to see 1080p. This is when 720p was big. I was like, I know, but it's just the bigger number, man.
Just give me that, yes, that yeah. And that's what it's all about. Just flexing that bigger number. All right. All right. One more from Brian Hopkins. Can't have access to purchase games through the app due to Apple requiring that they get a cut of the profits. Maybe they'll work in a fix. I know that's the case for Game Pass. I know that was one of the hurdles with Game Pass. But in terms of, like, the last Xbox app had store functionality on it. And I don't know off the top of my head 100% sure if that was on the Apple Store, but I assume it would have been. But
yeah, I'm no expert in this space, but
yeah, I don't know definitively there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the Game Pass thing was a little bit different. But if you think about it from a connectivity standpoint, you're connecting directly to the Xbox ecosystem from the app, right? You're not asking Apple's integration there. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think more through that one. But I didn't think there was a problem with buying games directly through the app, because I mean, you can install them right now through the app ahead of time. And doesn't PlayStation support store purchases on their app as well?
Yeah. So I don't know that that's the case specifically with the reason the Xbox Store isn't in the app. I know, again, there were legit conversations regarding that lawsuit with Epic regarding Game Pass potentially and the subscription service, and Apple wanting a cut of that and all that complicated stuff. But yeah, I guess realistically, I don't know definitively if there's any bearing to Apple's store policies and Xbox's app not having a store integrated. Speaking of consoles and console sales, all that juicy stuff kind of surrounding the conversations with the Xbox One and that generation being discontinued, Phil Spencer had an interview with the New York Times where he shed some light on the current state of Xbox console sales. And according to Big Papa Phil, the Xbox Series X and S are the fastest selling Xbox consoles ever right now. So he didn't give us a specific number in this interview, but a lot of industry analysts started diving into what that could potentially mean for the number of units sold. And a lot of estimates are saying that this means that the Xbox Series X and S combined have sold over 12 million units, which, with Xbox being so kind of quiet with console sales as they have been for many years, really, a lot of people have kind of taken that silence as the fact that maybe the Xbox Series X and S consoles aren't selling on par or even close to PlayStation, for example. There was metrics being thrown around that PlayStation 5 was selling 2-to-1, 3-to-1, but the last official figure we got from PlayStation in October-ish was, I think, 13-ish million. So with that being said, the gap between Xbox and PlayStation early on this generation is not that extreme. So we both know companies are suffering from chip shortages and selling basically every single console they can produce. So what I want to know is whether you think this strong start from Xbox indicates where the brand is headed this generation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's been interesting to see, and it'd be nice if we could do a one-to-one, not necessary to just kind of argue about sales numbers, but just to see, right? I'm always curious just from an analyst
Yeah.
perspective of where things line up. I mean, this is really good news for Xbox, obviously. I mean, the 360 was a hit out of the gate, so obviously we're in a different generation 15 years later, but the fact that it in a year has sold over 12, 13 million in that range. As you said, PS5 probably somewhere in the mid to high teens at this point, if we're
Hmm.
guessing, right? So I mean, we never thought it was going to sell as good as the PS5 just because of all the things we already know: brand power, market presence, all these other things. And as you said, Xbox being so open nowadays, where you can play their games on PC on day one, Game Pass accessibility, the cloud. I think this is a really impressive number for the Series X and S, and I think I have to imagine that Microsoft is very, very excited about what they're seeing here, especially when you combine it with, what they're seeing out of Game Pass subscriptions and kind of just if you look at even things like to your broader point around the Xbox going into this generation, if you look at things even like the impressions or kind of Google Analytics trends around where Xbox is as a brand compared to where they were even 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, right? They've made huge strides. There's so much more just overall talk about Xbox now than there were just a few years ago. And I think that that is definitely representative of just how much work they've put in over the past few years to really rebound from the, everything we kind of have talked about, all of us have talked about way too often from the early Xbox One generation. So it's just fantastic news, and it's not even fantastic news of a rah rah Xbox. It's fantastic news because everyone is doing extremely well. The video game
Yeah.
market is booming, and what this means, of course, is that Xbox's plan and I guess Phil's leadership, right, has led through this positivity. And all that means is all that funding and support, if you think about it from a corporate perspective, that funding and support and everything that Satya and the teams have given Phil to run with Xbox, he's proving it's working. So that means we're just going to get more of it, right? We're going to get more games. We're going to get more kind of services, third party deals, all these things that come to the end user, which is us. So at the end of the day, it means more for us, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, again, like a lot of us have our preferences. We have our gaming teams, our platform mascots that we champion and get behind. But I think the most interesting thing about all of this is Phil Spencer's comments about, how production, despite how much we hear about chip shortages, Phil Spencer touched on the fact that what they've been producing hasn't really been significantly less than any other
Yeah, it's
console
not the
generation.
supply problem, right? Yeah,
He's
it's
like,
not
the
a supply
demand
problem.
is way higher than a lot of people were expecting. And that's exciting. That means a lot of people are excited about gaming, investing in gaming, and that means there's going to be more money to throw around for cool projects.
Yep.
So again, I think it really kind of shows that there is a lot of interest around Xbox in general. And one cool thing that I've noticed, obviously this is just my social media bubble, but for a long time on Twitter, on a lot of social media platforms, you had a lot of people like everyone would be talking about a specific game. no matter, there was always that huge cultural moment in gaming, and I feel like for a few years Xbox wasn't usually part of that. Like, as much as I love Gears, like, Gears was never that big cultural moment where everyone was talking
No.
about it. This year I saw people online who I'd never really seen talk about Xbox in any capacity, like talking about how much they love Forza, talking about how fun
Yeah.
Halo is. Like, all these people are playing Xbox not because of their platform preference, blah blah blah. They're playing Xbox because Xbox has really cool games that everyone wants to
Yep.
play. And I think that's going to carry the most weight if they can kind of continue that momentum this generation.
Yeah, 100%. It's just it's like an overall kind of overarching view of Xbox, right? And we saw, I mean, they had a fantastic year game wise, as you said, and there's just a lot of positivity around the brand right now that we haven't seen in a long time. I think it was a different age during the kind of peak of the Xbox 360 era, which was just a joy to kind of play through, right? And I think if we had social media then, like we do today, we would have seen the same thing. But we haven't really felt it since then, right? We haven't, at least in my opinion, we haven't felt that same way about Xbox since then. But I think this is just an incredibly exciting time for Xbox with, everything going on into it. And as you said, Phil came out and said, it's not supply, it's demand. And I think one of the interesting things that people forget here, or may not really pay close attention to because it's boring as hell, is that is that he made a little comment about what was it? Maybe a year ago now, maybe 10 months or so. But Phil quietly said in an interview that we have made the right investments for us to continue production as needed for the Xbox Series X and S. And what he's essentially alluding to there, right, is that there are companies worldwide, globally, that are trying to produce laptops and phones and consoles and all these computers and all these things. And there's just an arms race, basically, because there's limited capability to produce those things. Luckily, Microsoft being Microsoft, they can throw more money around than
Yeah,
most.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
what he seemed to be alluding to is, look, we've spent the money so that we can continue production, right? Now, we don't know where Sony is in that or Nintendo or anyone else, but it's very clear that whatever they did and however much they spent um, kind of benefited them because, as he said, they're still producing as many as they can and still selling them all. So it's just, yeah, it's good news, man.
Yeah,
Real good news.
absolutely. It's, again, a lot of people like you and I, like, the numbers are interesting to a certain extent, but right now it's hard to make any definitive kind of statements regarding who's winning the generation right now in terms of
God.
console sales, because really both companies are selling every single thing that they put into the market at this point. Like, they are shipping them as fast as they can and they are selling just as fast. So again, as much as we want that data to be able to say definitively who's quote unquote in the lead, I think it'll really take another year or two before we start to see where these platforms are really kind of stacking up in terms of console sales. But what's going to be even more interesting with these conversations is, Xbox continues to say that console sales are not how they're determining the success of a generation for them. Like, they are kind of backing away from that. And, with this newfound success, it would be easy for Phil Spencer to kind of lean into that and say, we are doing really well with console sales. But I do find it kind of fascinating that he seems to be committed to the fact that, console sales are important for some people to look at the success of a business, but for us, it's still not. That's not our goal. Our goal is not to be the best-selling console manufacturer. We want to have an ecosystem that pulls people in.
Yeah. It's entry points, right? That's what always said is you want to meet the customer where they want to interact with your brand. That's just like a kind of overarching thing when you're talking about ecosystems, right? So there are people who will never buy a console. They want to just be
Mm-hmm.
on their PC. And so they've met them at the PC, right? Day and date. There are people who only want to play mobile. They're only going to play games on their phone. They're more whatever you want to call them. It doesn't matter. They're still a gamer. So they're trying to reach that market in different ways, right? Game Pass, cloud, etc. And that's a huge, the biggest global gaming market is mobile by a long shot. It's not even close. But then you still have a sizable market, of course, where people want a new console. They want the most powerful piece of hardware sitting under their TV, and they want to just interact with games like we've always done it. And so that's exactly where the Series X and S come in, and they've done extremely well in that regard. So I think Xbox has just kind of hedged their bets very, very well going into this generation, and it took them years, right, to build
Hmm.
out how they can kind of navigate all of these different channels, and they've just done it extremely well, and now they reap the rewards. I'm actually very excited to see. One thing I always dive into, again, being an analyst and being kind of a geek, is when the fiscal results come out, because PlayStation brand revenue is always very high, and they continue to grow, and Nintendo continues to grow, and so does Xbox. And I love seeing how all their different kind of methodologies are working, where they're all just continually increasing their revenue streams. It's fascinating to me.
It really is. And then what is that? January 20th? Like that's coming up pretty quick.
Should be coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt Piscatella posted about it, saying that NPD results are coming in pretty quick. So we will have some sort of quarterly earnings that we can dive into for those who care. For some people, that is boring as hell, and I get that.
I get it.
Unless you're an industry nerd or have stock invested in any of those companies, it's probably not the most exciting. But it is interesting to see that those graphs just continue to climb. They just
Yeah.
keep going up, and that's rare. A lot of businesses, a lot of kind of industries wish they could see that growth, just consistent growth constantly. And I'm going to be curious to see if there's a peak in gaming, if it ever gets to a point where we hit that pinnacle and things start to level out. But for now, it's just growing, and it's wild.
Yeah, it is, and the pandemic accelerated it, right? So, yeah, there has to be a peak somewhere, but I honestly think we're probably pretty far from it. I
Yeah.
think accessibility has always been a challenge, right? That we were talking about it earlier. How do you get There was a day where it's like, how do you get this console to this third world country and sell it at a price where they can buy it? And
Hmm.
that's always been a huge challenge, and technology is helping these companies kind of overcome those barriers. So, it's just, yeah, I geek out about this stuff way too much, man.
I'm gonna get to a couple super chats related to this topic here. Risk it for the biscuit. Another consideration is PS4's takeaway resources from PS5 production. This, however, may work in their favor. 1 million more chips gives them priority. Ains, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there is a world, or do you think that statement holds bearing that PS4s would take away resources from the PS5 in any meaningful way?
No. No, I don't, and I don't wanna be, not trying to be contrasting to Risk It for the Biscuit here, but, I would question to say, where are you getting that from, that it's taking away resources from PS5 production? That would obviously assume a few things, right? That you're using the same production lines with the same employees and the same everything, basically, which is not necessarily true. There are multiple companies in multiple countries that produce these systems all over the world, and I have to imagine that PlayStation would leverage, uh, one of those that has made PS4s probably for years, that would have zero impact on PS5 production. The last thing PlayStation would do right now, at this point in time, as they're already struggling, as everyone is struggling, as we just talked about, right, in manufacturing, is do something purposefully to further inhibit PS5 production. So I would have to think those two things are done in parallel, not one over the other. Um, Now, in terms of, I think what he's alluding to here with the 1 million more chips gives them priority. I don't know. Again, that kind of goes back to these deals that are made for production priorities. We would simply be speculating. We have no
Uh-huh.
idea.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think you bring up an excellent point when you say that PlayStation right now, I don't think would do anything that would meaningfully impact the PlayStation 5 production, because we're hearing about them paying for extremely expensive air shipping, which is rare. You don't do that unless you are trying to get consoles in the market as fast as you possibly can. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of an indicator of where their priorities are at. And again, I think, you know, they're probably doing this just as a way. They're probably doing this primarily because it's cheap, it's easy, and it's not going to impact the flow of PlayStation 5s.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I mean,
So
we've heard from all of them. They're doing everything they can to get these systems out, and in fact, I mean, they're probably taking losses in doing so, right? Because I
yeah,
mean, the margins of these consoles were already razor thin, and then when you're talking about having to pay extra to produce them and then pay extra to get them into markets, they're losing money, right? So,
yeah, because we're in this huge influx of new consoles, new graphics cards. the crypto NFT wave that's
Oh no.
sweeping the nation, where everyone wants a graphics card. So there's probably some heated conversations with these suppliers saying like, how do I get priority? Like, what on earth do I need to do to make sure I can get some of this done? And there's probably a ton of people all yelling at the same people to try to make this happen. So it's interesting. And again, we keep hearing that back half of this year things are going to improve. We heard that this week as well, that the graphics cards from Nvidia potentially won't be as hard to get in the back half of this year. We'll see how it all goes, but yeah, I think ultimately PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo are doing everything they humanly can to get as many of the new consoles out as they possibly can. Mr. Joanna Dark says, when does Sony cut the PS4? Second, we could see Sony enable the streaming of PS5 games on PS4, similar to what you can do with Xbox One S. All right, Ains, when is PlayStation dropping the PS4 like it's hot? When are they just officially done supporting it? It's dead. The generation's gone. We will not touch PS4 at all anymore.
Yeah. All right. So we talk about games again. We kind of touched on this earlier, right?
Console
The
itself.
console itself. I could see the console being manufactured, if I had to guess, into 2024. If we're talking globally, it's the same thing. I think someone else in the chat said it earlier, maybe UWU, where they made PlayStation 2 like eh, years and years after PS3 was out. Same with PS3, and we said it earlier, right? The global market for PlayStation and that brand is different. And there are people who will buy those consoles years after the new one is introduced to market. So I don't see them stopping PlayStation 4 production anytime soon, personally.
Yeah,
Now, sorry, I was just going to say, if any of these factors we've talked about, right, production, costs, shipping, if all those have a negative impact, that may influence that decision a little bit, but I don't see them stopping the actual console production anytime soon.
Yeah, I saw some interesting kind of speculation from some industry folks online that suggested that, the PS4 is all digital edition specifically is an important option for them when it comes to having that price point. But I've heard, again, this is just speculation from folks within the industry, that the margin on that is either tight or just non-existent for what they're making on the digital edition specifically. So I wonder if they can get the digital edition to a point where it is more profitable, that they could kind of swing into that version more so, and then that might speed up the transition from PS4. But I'm kind of on the same page that I think we'll see it for at least another year or two when it comes to PS4 support and being able to buy a PS4 online and in store, because the PS4 generation, as we talked about, was hugely successful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no reason for them to stop. Do you know what I mean? I have to imagine, again, 1 million globally is not a ton of PS4s.
No.
And as long as they sell and they continue to sell, why would they stop? It doesn't make sense to stop, because once you get someone who may get the PS4 for a first time, then they have access to that huge library that's continuing to grow, right? We've got Horizon, God of War, Gran Turismo all coming to PS4 as well. They still have access to new games, at least in the short term. So yeah, absolutely.
A super chat from Mr. Badbit, unrelated to the topic here, but shout out to Miles having Ains on the show, giving us the elderly perspective on games with us. You son of a
Yeah,
bitch.
I know he got me, but that's Joe.
Got
You
him.
know, you gotta love him. You gotta love him.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta love him. Awesome
He's just a
dude.
kid. He's just a kid. You know what I mean?
PlayStation trophy room. If you are an Xbox fan who dabbles in PlayStation, you can go give him a 1-star review on Spun. No, I'm just kidding. RG Johnny says, just FYI, the shipping thing isn't just Sony. It is pretty much the entire industry because of COVID supply chain issues. Everyone is paying more. Yeah. Again, I'm sure Xbox is doing some stuff to
Yes.
get those consoles in stores and to retailers that they wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, it's wild. I actually, not to get us off track, but I've got a buddy who works in kind of distribution. Basically, products come in and they get them out, and he has this app on his phone that shows all of the ships in the oceans waiting to deliver products. And he showed it to me a few weeks ago, and it looks like it's just a grid of just ships just sitting there. And he's like, they've been sitting there for weeks, just cannot get their products off of the ship to get distributed. And this is worldwide. It's wild, man. It's wild.
All right, Ains.
All
Console
right.
sales, all that good stuff. That's all well and good. That's fun for some people to talk about, but I think it's safe to say most of us are a little more interested in the games. And we've talked a little bit about Xbox's kind of momentum with Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, a bunch of great, exciting, huge games at the tail end of 2021. And then when it comes to 2022, the confirmed slate of Xbox exclusives is a little bit dry for the most part. I think it's fair to say. We have Crossfire
Mhm.
X next month, and then we had one other game in April. And that game was Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, which unfortunately has been delayed to December 8th, 2022. So a pretty significant delay for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So Ains, how did this one hit you? Were you all aboard the hype train on Stalker 2? Was this a blow to your spring?
Look, man, I'm just happy that we're finally gonna get NFTs at launch. You know what I mean? That's what
Hey,
I'm
amen, amen, brother.
No, I was interested in Stalker. I think that I think it's gonna be a great game, and I think it has a ton of potential. But it wasn't one that was like top of the radar for me. Just because of when I think about the first kind of quarter or into April this year, right, with Elden Ring and Horizon and Gran Turismo and what else? Dying Light 2, and you've got Witch Queen and Destiny, and
God, it's
Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. You know what I mean? There's
uh,
so many big releases that interest me to my personal preferences. That I was like, I'm good through the first half of the year. You know what I mean? I'm gonna need months to catch up on all these games. And you know as well as I, a game like Elden Ring, you know, you'll review it, then you'll play it again, then you'll play it again for a new build, and you know, there's just a lot of time that's gonna go into these games. So for me personally, I was just like, nope, this is fine. I've gotten to the point now. I don't know about you, Miles, but I've gotten to the point with game delays where they rarely impact me at all. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's delayed. Okay. You know, like
yeah.
I'd really. There's so many games to play, and there's so little time to play them half the time. And you always want these games. They're so complex nowadays that, you know, just give the developers as much time as they need. I'd much rather this game take as long as they need to come out and be fantastic and everything that we hope it can be, than try and rush out, which we saw again with Battlefield just recently. You know, that I'm a big Battlefield guy, and I got early access to that game, and I was like, this isn't good. This is in trouble. Like, they shouldn't release this fall, and they did, and look what happened. You know, the game's suffering because of it, and I'm tired of seeing that. I really wish devs would just take their time.
Yeah, and again, I think at this point with again everything that's going on in development in the world, it doesn't surprise me anymore when teams say they need more time. So again, Stalker 2 obviously was a big kind of spring title for Xbox as a very limited timed exclusive.
Yeah,
But I think as you touched on, there's no shortage of games in the first half. Like whether it's PlayStation exclusive or Xbox exclusive, if you look outside of that bubble, there are so many games coming out in the first half. In the
yeah.
next 2 months, there are a huge number of games. So again, I kind of agree that, you know, if that game needs more time, and clearly it does need more time, that I want them to take that. I want them to have that. We still have Dying Light 2. We still have Elden Ring. We still have Horizon Forbidden West. We still have Tunic. We still have
Yeah.
everything that Nintendo's doing, Kirby, Pokemon Legends Arceus. There are so many games coming out. So again, I don't think this is a huge blow. Again, we see a lot of people fixate on the exclusives and the hardcore extreme on one side saying, well, Xbox has no games coming out for the first 6 months of the year. And I mean, if outside of Crossfire X, yeah, sure, I guess that's true. That's true if you want to look at like big kind of exclusive titles, but there's still a ton to play. And
Yeah, and that's the nature of the industry, right? Like it goes in waves right now because there's at this point in time anyway, there's not enough AAA releases first party that are going to come where it's going to be every month. You know, it's just not feasible at this point in time. You know, we saw a perfect example was last year, right? First half of the year, PlayStation had a lot of games, and big titles. Second half of the year, after Deathloop release, which, funny enough, as we all know, made by an Xbox studio, but after Deathloop release, they don't have another big title for 6 months till
mhm,
February when Horizon releases. Xbox had the fall. We had everything we talked about earlier, right? And now they just it goes in waves. It's not a big deal.
yeah, yeah, again, so for some people that is a bummer and I get it. I remember when again, most delays don't bother me. There are obviously the titles that I want in my life as soon as possible. So the Elden Ring delay, as even though it was a short one, it was just a little baby delay. I was like, oh no, no, 30 more days. Come on, dude. So
Yeah.
I get it, but also in the grand scheme of things, there will be other games to play. So as Xbox kind of focuses on partnering with other publishers and third party deals with
Yeah.
stuff like Rainbow Six Extraction, are there any titles on your radar right now that you could see Xbox potentially using to quote unquote fill those gaps when it comes to big Game Pass releases?
Man, I mean, they're doing such a good job of that, right? Like, I can't believe that it's what we're literally halfway through January and we've had our first kind of half of the month Game Pass drop, which had Mass Effect Legendary Edition in
Uh
it,
huh.
right? Because of EA. And then you get Rainbow Six Extraction, right? And then they just announced what's the third one I'm forgetting? They just announced. Oh man, the
Oh,
one
Hitman, the Hitman trilogy.
Hitman. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hitman
like
trilogy
come
is
on.
I know, coming next week with like everything, right? And I'm just like, good lord, we're 2 weeks into the year. Xbox, calm down. But it's they're doing such a good job with that, and I think that behind the scenes, I have to imagine that the growth of Game Pass in the second half of last year was big, right? Obviously with Halo and Forza Horizon 5 and stuff, Psychonauts 2, all those games. And I think what they're going to do is exactly that. I don't think these few that we've seen here in January so far are going to be anywhere near the end. I think this first half of the year we'll continue to see Xbox make deals that'll bring bigger titles to Game Pass. You have some other kind of random things happening too, right? Like we know that the big update and the next gen patch for Cyberpunk is coming in the first quarter,
Oh
still from
yeah, yeah.
CDPR. I could see something like that. They had the marketing for Cyberpunk. Why not say you can now play Cyberpunk in Game Pass? It's next gen optimized. It's ready to go. They've got the next gen update for Witcher 3 coming in the second quarter from CD Projekt Red. Witcher 3, I know it's 6 years old or 7 years old going to be. It's still one of those games that charts nearly every month and people still talk about because it's that good. Why not throw that in there? Complete edition, Series X and S upgraded. So I just think there's a lot of things that Xbox can do with third-party publishers, second-party publishers that they'll capitalize on for the first half of the year, no doubt.
Yeah, as you touched on, they have started the year so strong.
Crazy.
Huge slate of partnerships in Game Pass, and this is something I kind of touched on towards the end of last year. Is that going into this year, Xbox Game Pass was going to leverage a lot of partnerships. They have dedicated teams, basically focused on talking to these teams, getting these teams on board with Game Pass releases, and I'm curious to see how big it can get because we saw, Outriders, Rainbow Six Extraction, some people could make a case that those aren't necessarily humongous gets for everyone. Like those don't have a humongous appeal to a broad audience.
Yeah.
Um, but then we had MLB The Show, which kind of set this precedent that Xbox understands how to pull in a more casual audience or how to target specific big games with big appeal.
Yeah.
So I see some
Yeah.
people in the chat talking about stuff like Elden Ring as an example of like that would be the Game Pass get. And again, I talked about this in the last episode. I don't think Elden Ring needs Game Pass in any way, shape, or form to be
Oh,
successful. But my God, dude, if Elden Ring hits Game Pass, that would be such a power play. That would be such a big power play for Xbox. And one weird thing that I have noticed with Elden Ring, and this is absolutely speculation that could mean nothing whatsoever, but I've never seen so many people from Xbox quote tweeting and actively going out of their way to share details about Elden Ring. So again, that could mean nothing at all. But I'm seeing all these people from all these different departments within Xbox sharing Elden Ring, and obviously there's a lot of hype surrounding Elden Ring in general.
you
But
feeding into it. You feeding into it.
again, I think that where I stand currently is I'm not expecting it at all. But if they do it, that will be the biggest Game Pass get that they've gotten so far, and that will
Yeah.
the speculation surrounding Game Pass releases after that, if they do that, will just be out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Elden Ring is coming to Game
No,
Pass. To
I
your
don't think
point,
so.
Bandai Namco doesn't need it. Elden Ring, if you look again at some of the impressions, the pre-orders, all that stuff around Elden Ring, that
Number
game
one
is
wish
going
list
to
of
be
game on Steam, like
yeah, it's going to sell through the roof.
Uh-huh.
And the hype around that game is, yeah, there's no reason for them to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Bandai Namco. I mean, it'd be cool. Don't get me wrong. I'll take any game launching on Game Pass. That's great. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. But to your point, there was a day, a couple years ago, right? There was an age, I guess you'll say, where there were quite a few people who never thought we would see AAA titles on launch on Game Pass. I mean,
True.
that was a frequent conversation,
What
and
was
I
it?
think
Game Pass filler is what a lot of people used to
yeah, you would get
downplay it.
AAA games that were either nobody wanted or they'd be down the line. You know what I mean? And I think that people are starting to realize that Game Pass, and because as it grows, it just gains in power. It kind of sounds funny, but when you hear some of the third party developers talking about, oh, you have 20 million subscribers, or you have to 25, 30 million, once those numbers get up into those types of numbers, it becomes much harder to ignore for some of those developers. You know what I mean? There's just too many people playing the game. And I think it also what also factors into that is how the game is monetized, right? Like a game like Elden Ring is you buy the game, there's literally nothing else in it you can buy, right? There's no monetization, there's no passes, there's no nothing. At this point in time, anyway. Whereas like MLB The Show is the perfect game for Game Pass, because that game is all about getting people into it, because where those games make their money are from the online franchises and the card trading and stuff, right? So the fact that they added millions to the player count for MLB The Show at launch is huge for the Sony studio that makes that game. But yeah, Elden Ring I don't see, but
Yeah.
I do see them making some deals for other games in the first half of the year. And you also mentioned Tunic, which kind of touches on the fact that we're overlooking a lot of big name indie games too. Like we have
Yeah.
Nobody Saves the World coming next week, which
Yep.
I'm pumped about. Guacamelee Dave, really fun demo. There's a demo on Xbox if you haven't played that yet, by the way. But there's a lot of other good indies coming this year, and I think we're at a stage now as well. Sorry to keep rambling here, but we're at a stage now where indies can be very, very powerful. We saw
Yeah.
it at a Hades was kind of borderline, but I mean, fantastic game, very celebrated. Um, there's a lot of good indie games out there that get a lot of press. We had It Takes Two. We had Death's Door last year, huge
Yeah.
game. So those types of games can have a big impact as well.
Yeah, like if you're watching on YouTube, we're playing some footage from Spelunky 2, which is another
There you go.
amazing indie title that Game Pass got, and I think Game Pass really understands how to fill the niche for everyone. They want to make sure that there is a title for everyone, and indies are an amazing way to do that. So yeah, Xbox has some stuff up their sleeve. I'm sure we'll start to see more of that, and I'm sure there's a lot of deals they're working on right now that they're just trying to figure out the financials and the logistics for how to make it work.
Yep.
I'm gonna get to some super chats here. We got Mr. Joanna Dark, who's kind of on your side here with this one. It says, with the delay of Stalker 2, could Cyberpunk 2077 fill that void in
Oh,
Game Pass and drop
there you
with the
go.
next gen patch? Boom. I think that's a great play. And there's been, a lot of speculation. There was what leading up to the Cyberpunk 2077 launch, there was all this fervor and all these rumors that it's launching in Game Pass, baby.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2077 launching in Game Pass. And then the publisher and the developers like, it's not launching in Game Pass. And people were like, oh dude, he has to say that. It's still launching in Game Pass. But it's been well over a year, and after the let's just, regardless of whether you like the game or not, there was a ton of negative publicity
Yes.
surrounding the launch of Cyberpunk 2077. I think that would be a great way to relaunch the game. Here's the new patch. Here's all the updates. It's in Game Pass. Check it out. We know some people were upset by how it started, but here's where we're at now, and here's what you can expect from the future. And I think putting it in Game Pass would get a lot of people who maybe who saw all the negativity online, saw all the YouTubers memeing on it, and said, I'm not playing this game, never. I'm not going to pay $60 for this. But you put it in Game Pass for maybe it's only like 3 months. Maybe it's a more limited one, like we saw when Witcher 3 originally went in, to get people like, oh, damn, okay, there's something here.
Red Dead 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this game is dope, okay. And then when that next big update comes out, people are like, okay, I'm buying Cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can buy it cheap now, so why not? Yep.
All right, Harji Chani, all aboard the hype train here. So Xbox needs. Let me stress that Xbox needs to get Elden Ring in Game Pass to replace Stalker for the spring. They also need to add Ubisoft Plus full day and date to Game Pass Ultimate. Damn, Harji
Wow.
out here just expecting the world for $15 a month. So, okay, there were a lot of conversations about Ubisoft Plus very recently with the announcement that Ubisoft Plus was coming to Xbox. Um, do you think that's something that will eventually get bundled into Game Pass Ultimate?
I think eventually it will in some form. Well, yeah, we had a good conversation about this last week on my show, which, Ubisoft clarified that it's coming to Xbox consoles, right? Not Game Pass or launching into Game Pass last week. But I have to see a future where there's some type of bundle there, right? Like you Game Pass Ultimate plus Ubisoft Plus for $20, $25, whatever that may be. But I don't, at least in the short term, I don't see Ubisoft Plus just falling into Game Pass Ultimate as it exists today. That's not going to happen. So we'll see. I don't think the weird thing about Ubisoft Plus on PC, right, is it's $15 a month, so it's the same as Game Pass Ultimate, but it's just Ubisoft's catalog, and I don't mean to detract from that, but it's a much more scarce release lineup than Game Pass Ultimate, which is just overflowing with games every month at this point. So from a value proposition standpoint, if Ubisoft thinks they're just going to drop Ubisoft Plus on consoles for $15 and you're going to get millions of people signing up, I don't see that happening.
But bro, if all of their games are 100 hours, think of the value proposition there, bro. Think of how many hundreds of hours of Assassin's Creeds you get to play for $15 a month.
I sense a little bit of sarcasm.
I know people love Assassin's Creed, and I don't fault them for it. There's some great stuff there, but yeah, I agree. I don't think Ubisoft's portfolio alone, for me personally, and my tastes and what I prefer, I don't think $15 a month is interesting at all. I would never pay $15 a month for Ubisoft Plus, and I don't think Xbox is just going to throw it into Game Pass Ultimate because of the reason that Ubisoft wants $15. Ubisoft thinks it's worth $15 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it being one. If they do just throw it on there for $15 a month, it's going to be one of those things where, like, when the next Assassin's Creed launches, someone subscribes for a month, plays it, and then unsubscribes. You know what I mean? It's not going to have that player retention that like Game Pass has, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, we'll see. Maybe there'll be an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate Plus. $29.99 gets you Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and Ubisoft Plus, baby. Let's go. Brian Hopkins, a consistent man of culture here. We talked about this a little bit on the last episode as well, but his pick is Evil Dead for Xbox Game Pass, baby. Let's go. Again,
I think you and I are the only ones I ever see talking about that game.
It bums me. Again, I know it's when it comes to people talk about Elden Ring being niche. No, Evil Dead the game is niche. Evil Dead the game feels like a game that was made specifically for me. As someone who loves Evil Dead, someone who loves multiplayer horror titles, like when I saw that reveal, I was so hyped. And then I went on Twitter and I was like, no one else is really that hyped about this. Like, where's the energy here? They got all the original voice actors from like every Evil Dead movie. They have the Knight character from Army of Darkness. Like, where is the hype for this?
It's like a love letter to fans.
It really is. Like, you can tell watching that this was made by a bunch of huge nerds who just love Evil Dead. And that, for me, as a fellow Evil Dead nerd, has me excited. But then I went on Twitter and I had a lot of people saying, "What's Evil Dead?" And I was like,
oh man,
I'm old. I'm old, bro. Like if most people don't even know what Evil Dead is, then
I know that hurts. It hurts. I think it has some of the Ashverse Evil Dead stuff too, right?
Yeah. It's got Pablo in it. It's
Pablo, man. Pablo's
come on, let's go. All right, next 30 minutes all about Evil Dead. Let's no, but we're gonna transition into some juicy leaked goods. All right, we're gonna be talking about a publisher that's a developer that's near and dear to our hearts, and a title from them that has potentially leaked in some ways. And there was a customer survey going around that somebody posted to Reddit regarding from Software that had some screenshots and some details about Armored Core 6. So a lot of people have been really diving into this because there are some really interesting points with this leak. Not only do we see screenshots of gameplay, but they touched on the setting and how this is going to be a sci-fi action title with aliens, with cultists, and it's going to be spearheaded by the legend Miyazaki himself. So Miyazaki, coming off of Elden Ring, has seemingly been working on Armored Core 6. So,
Yeah,
Ains, are you an
wild.
Armored Core fan? Does this? How did you feel when you saw this kind of rumbling earlier this week?
Yeah, I happened to stumble upon the person who first posted the screenshots of the survey, right? And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And we'd heard some kind of rumblings about this, right? That Armor Core was coming back. So the weird thing here is I'm not a huge Armor Core like veteran in any sense of the word. I've played a couple of them, never finished any of them. But it does interest me, and just I think where I am now in my gaming kind of likes and dislikes, this would definitely kind of be up there. And just hearing, as well as I do, just hearing that this is actually coming from Miyazaki, like the
That's all I
man
need,
is,
baby.
yeah, it's like that. The man, he makes gold. I mean, he just does. Like, look at his track record of the last several games he's made. He knows how to make a good game. So you start talking about new additions to the Armored Core formula. You're talking about mechs. You're talking about challenging kind of games and dynamics. Miyazaki at the helm. I'm all in, man. I can't wait to hear more about this.
Because early on, like I have fond memories of the first few Armored Core games, and I have fond memories of never beating any of them because they were just stupidly hard.
Yeah,
Like Armored
challenging.
Core 1, when you bring your mech into battle, and if you lose a mission, you have to pay money to fix your mech in that game. So you are punished brutally. If you run out of money in your campaign, you just have to start the entire campaign over. If you don't have the resources to fix your mech, that's it. So I remember like getting to like 4 or 5 missions in every time and then dying to a boss over and over and then just being like, well, got to start over, got to start from the beginning. So I do have fond memories of Armored Core. I'd love to see a fresh take on it because it's been a while. The last title
Yeah.
came out in 2013, and again, like hearing those buzzwords, you have aliens in the mix. You have cultists, which is a huge Miyazaki theme. Miyazaki loves his cultists, and thinking about how that fits in Armored Core has me very excited because I've never personally played an Armored Core where I can remember aliens involved. It's usually been like mech on mech action.
Mm, yeah.
So again, I haven't played, let's say, 3 through 5. So maybe maybe I missed the introduction of aliens in this world. But yeah, again, hearing Miyazaki being involved is enough to have me at least interested because as you touched on, this dude doesn't miss. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not your jam, even if you don't particularly like these games, um I challenge people when they say that these games aren't good because, again, you don't have to like something for it to be good. There's a lot of like
Yeah.
Mass Effect, most infamous one for me. I get a lot of flack because I don't love Mass Effect.
Okay.
That being said, I don't say Mass Effect is a bad game. I don't say it has terrible gameplay, it has a terrible story, blah blah blah, because that's not true. Even though it's
Yeah.
not for me, I can look at Mass Effect and go, I get it. I get why people
Yeah.
like that. So I think Miyazaki has kind of built up this just cult reputation, and there are people who, like us, who will just play anything that he puts out.
Yeah. Yeah, he hasn't led us astray yet, right? It's funny you say that because I mentioned Zelda earlier. As you know, Zelda is like that for me. I mean, it's one of the most legendary gaming franchises we've had, and tens of millions of people adore it, and it doesn't do anything for me. So yeah, we had a good conversation about that. Me and a couple others on a show I did recently about that. Whereas I would love to see the gaming community get to a point where a big game comes, or not even a big game, just any game comes out, it has some popularity, what have you. People like it, and instead of people playing it for an hour and saying, "Oh, that game's trash, it's garbage, whatever," just say it's not for me. Like it's okay not to like a game, right? You don't have to like everything everyone else does. Like I wish
Yeah,
people would be more comfortable just looking at a game and saying, "Oh, that looks cool," but yeah, it doesn't interest me. Like no big deal.
yeah, it's one of those things where rarely is there a truly offensively bad game that comes out. A game that
Right.
comes out and said that is worthy of being called trash or whatever the hyperbolic nonsense people want to throw around. I remember playing the beta for Resident Evil Verse, RE Verse.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that was the
yeah.
first time in a long time where I just had to be like, this is a bad game. This
Mm,
is a concept that I hardly ever say this, but this is a time where I think this should be canceled. Like based on playing this either needs to be completely changed or canceled.
yeah.
Um, but that is so rare. But I see so many people online going out of their way to talk about how this game is terrible. This game's awful. I don't understand how anyone can like this. And I see it for huge games like Witcher 3,
I
Elden
know.
Ring, like all these huge games that are beloved. And I'm like, stop. You just say you don't like it. That's it.
Yeah,
Just say you don't like it and
exactly.
please move on for all of our sake.
Yeah. Why again, why would you want to spend energy talking about things you don't like? That's it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why are you expending energy to just hate on stuff? It's very strange.
Yeah. So, do you think they're gonna make Armored Core 6 a Souls-like? Do you think it's going to be a they're gonna just take the Sekiro route and go, it's not technically a Souls game, but it's gonna be in that space, and we're gonna cater to that niche with Armored Core. Do you think it's that, or do you think it's gonna be kind of more in line with what it was?
I don't know. The way they've gone with their games and as popular as they are now, I mean, if you think about how much Dark Souls has influenced the gaming industry over the past decade, right? I mean, there are just so many games that have pulled aspects from the Souls games over those years. I could see them going down the route of keeping it unique, but adding in some elements or some likenesses to their other games in their kind of category or library. Because at the same time, From Software is growing. Their games are getting more and more popular. I think it would just make sense to have some type of thing where people can recognize their games, right? Like if you were a non-gamer who had maybe played Souls or something, and you'd heard of From Software, but you play this new Armor Core, do you know it's a game from Software without explicitly seeing it? Do you know what I mean? Like there's those studios where the game just has some DNA in it, right? You hear about that in like Bethesda Softworks games, whether you're playing Fallout or Elder Scrolls or some of their other games. It's like, what has that Bethesda DNA or it has that Rockstar DNA? I think From Software is getting to the point where you can feel when you're playing a From Software game, um, and I could see that being true of Armored Core.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's fundamentals that Miyazaki is known for, and I think that Armored Core, while probably not being a Souls-like,
Yeah,
will potentially cater to that a little bit.
yeah,
And again, I'm curious. It's been a hot minute since I've dove in and checked out a Armored Core game, so I'm curious. I'm curious to see what a fresh take on that's going to be, because rumors were that Sekiro was started off as basically like a reimagining of Tenchu. Like they were
right.
going back to Tenchu to say like, how do we make Tenchu work? Like what's that going to look like? And that ended up being incredible. Like there's people who argue that that is the best thing that From Software has done, and I totally understand that. So um I also see some people in the chat saying that the stream is maybe lagging, buffering. Might be a YouTube issue. Let me know if refreshing doesn't fit. I just did a speed test. I'm uploading at like 50 megabits per second and downloading at 500. So I don't
Yeah,
think
I'm
it
not
should be
seeing
a
any issues.
yeah. So yeah, let me know if it might just be a YouTube thing, but I'm seeing that from a couple people.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of From Software, I would be
Mhm.
remiss. I would be remiss if we didn't dive into the potential game of the year here
Go.
with Elden Ring. You and
Go.
I are kind of on the same page in the idea that we understand that Dark Souls 3 is a better game than Bloodborne. You
Of
know, I
course.
that,
We
that,
only
that,
talk
that
facts on this show.
exactly. You know, that's
Yeah.
controversial. People take offense
Nah.
to that. People are passionate about Bloodborne. And I love Bloodborne. Don't
Yeah.
get me
Me
wrong.
too.
Bloodborne is a banger. Bloodborne hits 95% of the time. Bloodborne hits, all right? Um that being said, Dark Souls 3, the pinnacle for me of From Software so far.
Yes.
Um and Elden Ring, the meme for a while was this is big Dark Souls. Elden Ring just looks like big Dark Souls. And
Yeah.
me hearing big Dark Souls, that's got me
I'm
feeling a certain way, bro.
I'm in. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
So now that we're, just over a month away from the launch here, where you
Close.
at? Where you at with your Elden Ring hype levels? How you feeling?
Yeah.
What's your kind of mental state with Elden Ring right now?
Yeah, I'm super hyped, man. Did you play the tech test?
I did play
Oh,
the
that's
tech
right.
test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that only made it worse, obviously, the wait. But yeah, I'm incredibly hyped for this game. I think that it has the potential to be the best from software game, right? I think I could see, depending on a few factors, which I don't know how much we can talk about from that tech test.
Oh, we can
But
talk about anything because
oh, good.
there's like 30-minute videos. Like I think that was the restriction is you can't upload more than 30 minutes
Oh, okay,
but we
okay.
can talk about anything from it.
Yeah, so there's a few aspects, like, so overwhelmingly I was in love, right? Because I do love exploration and kind of larger open world games, but they obviously have to be done a certain way. We've all had that conversation. I don't know if you ever played the Neo games.
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
played Neo 1 and 2.
Yeah, so I love those games, and I love the loot design because it's more like Diablo, right? I love that randomized loot. But the thing that really kills me with those games is the linear kind of closed off level design, where it's like you go level to level to level, right? The thing I love about the Souls games that have always done something kind of unique for me is it when you're truly invested in it, it almost feels like you're transported to that world, and there's just something kind of mystical, alluring, magical about those worlds. And I think what Elden Ring is going to do, hopefully successfully, is make that even broader, right? Like you saw them, Dark Souls 3 kind of accomplished that a little bit. Like Bloodborne took it one direction, Souls 3 expanded upon it, Sekiro expanded even almost a little further, and I see Elden Ring being that finally where they branch out and you can just kind of fully invest in exploring this world, and discovering the sense of discovery is going to be phenomenal in that game. Um, so I really do think this has the potential to be our favorite Soulsborne game yet. And it might, because of that, knowing how much I love Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne and those other games, that has me just overly hyped.
Yeah.
And it's deeper, right? Like the skills and the weaponry and the combat moves. There's just a lot that's been added to it too. That's going to make uh, multiple playthroughs even more intriguing than they were in the past.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I remember liking Demon Souls when I first played it, but it's kind of like your criticism of Neo is it's more traditional. You have your stage, you pick a stage, you go to that stage, you play that stage, you come back to like the hub world or you come back to the menu, whatever it is to go to the next one. I remember playing
Yeah.
Dark Souls for the first time and like making that loop back to Firelink Shrine for the first time and being like, "Whoa, this whole
Yeah.
world is connected." So
It's all connected.
oh my head just exploding. And it's like not what some people would consider a traditional open world game,
Right.
but it felt like a real place or a place that could exist in some mystical land. And there was a reason for everything. Seeing the other locations in the environment and knowing that at some point, that's not just environment background details. I'm going to go to that castle. I'm going to build up to that moment. And Elden Ring
Yep.
has a ton of that because this is their unlike Dark Souls, this is their true open world take on it. So everything that you see around you in this kind of massive island is something you can go to. And again, this is pretty much a From Software greatest hits. It's pulling elements of Sekiro, it's pulling elements of Dark Souls, it's pulling elements of Bloodborne. It's pulling
Yep.
elements of all of those games into this kind of open world evolution of the Souls-like formula. And
Yeah.
that's what I want. Like I've replayed Dark Souls 3 like probably 6 or 7 times. Like I've
Right.
just gone through and played over and over and over. And like I every time I finish it, I want more. Like every time I get to the end, I beat all the stages, I beat all the DLC. I just want a little bit more. And it seems like Elden Ring is going to have that little
Yeah.
bit more for me.
It definitely does feel like it sounds weird, right? Because it does feel like Dark Souls 4. It does. But
And not Bloodborne
when
2.
you yeah, thank goodness, Um, but when you say that, people are like, "Oh, it's just Dark Souls 4," and I'm like, "Well, but it's so much more than that." And I think people will see that soon, because even in the short time we got to play it, you could see that there's so much more to it. Now, I wanted to ask you something because I know how much we love this game, and we both played the tech test. There was one aspect that kind of worried me.
Okay,
So
let's hear it.
I want to know if you felt this. So as you kind of explore and discover, there are these little kind of like dungeon areas, right? Like you can find, and they have, like, I found one, for instance, you open the door to, and it's a little dungeon area, and you go through some pathways, and at the end there's a little boss. Like it's a boss fight, but it's not like one of the mega, the main boss fights, right? The only thing I felt was like if those are scattered around, there's nothing wrong with that, but they felt very almost like templated. Like it was very straightforward. It was like here's a couple paths you go. Took me maybe 15 minutes to explore. The boss fight wasn't difficult. I beat him first try. And then, you move out and it's like you get to an end. Do you know what I mean? There's like an end room where you teleport back to the beginning. And I
Yes.
was like that just felt like it almost felt like filler. In the sense of it was just like when I got to say the catacombs in Dark Souls 3, right? Um, and you're going through all the skeletons and everything you fight down there and all the different pathways. That's an entire level that's dedicated to that level design. Whereas these kind of felt like little tacked on areas where I was hoping when they said there'd be dungeons in the world, you would kind of navigate through them, they'd be bigger, and then you would come out the world somewhere else. Like you always do in Dark Souls, right? Like
Hmm.
you kind of navigate through, but getting through this kind of pretty plain dungeon and then just teleporting back to the entrance and leaving didn't feel like Souls to me.
Yeah, that there was some interesting kind of experimentation that I would again. I know some people don't like this comparison; they're a little tired of hearing it, but it's kind of how I felt about Breath of the Wild, where like some of the dungeon, like there were a ton of little like shrines that you would do in Breath of the Wild, and some of them were really cool, and some of them were kind of forgettable. I feel like
Speak
some of
on it, Miles. You've got the right guest to talk about the negatives of Breath of the Wild. I'm here for
So,
it.
as much as I love Breath of the Wild, that was kind of one of my criticisms of it. So it seems like, again, one of the things I love about Dark Souls 3, and the reason it's so special to me is every single area is memorable. I
Yeah.
remember every nook and cranny of every single environment of Dark Souls 3, and that's so rare for me to happen in a game because I always feel like in a game, in a huge open world game or a huge RPG, there are areas that are either forgettable or boring, or I just want to be done with. I just want to get through them and move on. Dark Souls 3 for me was one of those rare times where I appreciated every single area. And that's again for people who care. I'm not just like I'm not negative for Bloodborne just for the sake of being negative. I think that was the one flaw of Bloodborne is it doesn't have that. Bloodborne's aesthetic is similar in a lot of ways to the point where I don't every environment to me wasn't as memorable. And I think what you talk about with Elden Ring, I kind of agree that that is a concern for me because there are going to be way more dungeons and therefore way more content, but it doesn't feel
Yes.
like every single dungeon is going to be this like meticulously crafted, hyper unique experience that we're accustomed to. Um,
Yeah.
I did a lower deep dive for Elden Ring on Windows Central for people who want to get caught up. But when I was going down that, I was listening to interviews, reading interviews with Miyazaki, and it sounds like the structure of this is going to be there will be those big fundamental dungeons that we kind of know and love, what they're calling legacy dungeons, and
Right.
those are going to be what you want. Those are going to be the ones where you go
Yeah.
through, you have the epic boss at the end, and that progresses you to the next area. And one thing, this is absolute speculation, but I'm wondering if this ties into progression at all, is they talk about how each of these big world bosses, these demigods, has a great
Mm-hmm.
rune, and each of these great runes possesses a unique power. So I'm wondering if this is going to be even more inspired by Zelda, or let's say even Mega Man, and you beat a boss and you get some sort of power from that that allows you to progress to a new area or traverse something you couldn't traverse before. Again, total speculation there, but
Mm.
I am on board with the idea that of the kind of like experimental small dungeons that I've done, they have been very short and very basic. Like they've
Yeah.
been you go in here, you do a couple tunnels, you fight some cool enemies, and then there's like a boss at the end. Did you find the gargoyle boss? Did you let me know if you found the
I
garg
don't think
you would
so.
know. You would know because
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
it is the most like comical shit I've ever seen in a From Software game. Like I was playing co-op with a buddy and we were laughing so hard because you go through this dungeon with all these gargoyle traps that are breathing fire on you, and there's these like little gremlin minions in there, and then you get to the end and there's this secret path that you find that leads you to the final boss. And the final
Okay.
boss is one of those fire-breathing gargoyle statues
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that just floats around the room. Like it's literally a statue that can fly. So it's all it can do is move its front arms and blow fire, but there's no other animation to it. So it's just this floating gargoyle statue, and it was so
Is
weird.
it just like a goofy Easter egg they put in for,
Eh,
you know?
that's one thing I will say I've noticed in Elden Ring is there's a lot more whimsy. It's a lot more whimsical than say Dark Souls or
Whimsical.
Bloodborne, because did you find the monkey, the monkey in the bowler cap that was hidden in a bush?
I don't think so.
There's you walk around the open world, and then you hear
Yeah.
this person calling to you, "Hey, over here!" And then you're looking
Oh,
around and you
I
don't
saw
see
I
anyone.
saw someone post a clip of it.
Yeah,
Yes,
and then
okay.
you like go to this bush that's talking to you, and there's a tree talking to you, and you're like, "What the hell?" You're like, help me, hit me!" And you smack the bush, and then it turns into a monkey with a bowler cap with a British accent, and you're like, "Okay, all right, Miyazaki, you're just getting weird with it. I'm here for it. Let's see where it
No doubt.
goes."
I think that's been so great with the Souls community too, right? Is it feels like they've added more and more things as the games have gone that people have discovered, right? And you kind of the community as the game releases, that's going to be one of the most fun things when the game releases is people are going to be discovering all these things and sharing them and what can you uncover and so it's just going to be a really really good time because it does feel like there's going to be just endless little Easter eggs, callbacks, strange oddities, all these things in this game. No
Yeah,
doubt.
I've been trying to avoid major spoilers. There's been people digging
Yeah.
into the technical test on PC and pulling up a lot of details. Um, but I'm in the same camp. A lot of the stuff that's exciting about Dark Souls for me and from software games are the secrets, the weird little things that you can do that like are very convoluted and people like spend months and months figuring out how to do them. And when I hear that Elden Ring has like 56 hours of NPC dialogue, stuff like that gets me really excited about digging in there and trying to uncover all these things. Our boy Vadi Vidya, he's going to be
Yeah.
a busy man because there's going to be
Yeah.
a lot to unpack here. And
Can you
again,
imagine how much his channel is going to grow this year? Holy crap, man. I mean, he's already big, but you know what I mean? Like, oof.
yeah, that's going to be a big deal. And I hope that this appeals to more people because, again, like, I do understand the reasons people don't like From Software RPG. There are a
Yeah.
lot of things that, when it comes to quality of life or when it comes to things that are difficult, um, that don't necessarily need to be as difficult as they are, there is still some of that. And I think as they progress, they learn how to adjust to those. So I think games like Dark Souls 3, Sekiro address a lot of the concerns of previous games. And from what I played of the technical test, it seems like there are a lot of quality of life changes that will make this more accessible and easier for the average person to pick up and say, I like RPGs in general, so I want to check this out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you your opinion on that because I've seen and I've talked to a lot of people who are getting caught up in the Elden Ring hype, which is cool. You love
Yeah.
to see that. And I hope it does kind of broaden its appeal to an even bigger audience and more people get to experience. So don't take this the wrong way. But I do see quite a few people who are saying who have actively tried to play a Souls game, right? Souls 3 or whatever, any of them, or Bloodborne or Sekiro, and they've tried because of hype and they've struggled and never get past the first hour or two. And despite
Mm-hmm.
honestly trying.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of those people saying, "Oh, I can't wait! Elden Ring open world. Hopefully, I can get more into it and stuff." And I don't know. After I played a few hours of it, I was like, as much as I'm obviously overly excited for this game, I still see a lot of people buying into the hype, buying this game, and just getting punched in the face. I think there's going to be people that just fall out and are again like I tried again and still couldn't get into it.
Yeah, one of the most upset or frustrating things for me about Dark Souls 3 is that first boss is such a skill check. Like the tutorial before you can even level up, before you can do anything,
Yep.
fighting Iodex Gundyr. Dude, if you
Yep.
pick the wrong build, like if you don't understand the mechanics of the game and you just jump in as like a random like melee rogue character, you get beat. You get beat hard and you're like, I can't even progress past the tutorial boss. Like you look at
Yep.
the achievements on Xbox, only like 55 to 60% of people who played Dark Souls 3 on Xbox beat the tutorial boss, dude. Like, so I get it. I had a buddy, like, he knows I'm into Dark Souls. He wanted to give it a try. He picked up Dark Souls 3. He was getting
Yeah.
so pissed in that tutorial boss. He's like, what is this? Like, I can't even do anything. I can't progress. This isn't fun, blah, blah, blah. So he eventually beat it. But by the time he beat that boss, he was just like over the game because it was like had pissed him off that much. And so Elden Ring is easier in some ways. You have your horse traversal, you can run from encounters, you can summon
Yep.
NPCs, which I think is going to be the biggest factor of making it slightly easier. But
Yeah.
that being said, when I got to the first boss,
The real boss.
Margit
Yeah.
the Fell,
Yes.
wow. As someone who plays Dark Souls and can beat most of the Dark Souls 3 bosses fairly easily at this point, I was getting smacked around, dude.
Yeah. I was
Like
too.
those animation, like they fake you out a lot more. They spend a lot
Yeah.
of time with the AI. So they have windups and they're like psych, and then they'll do something completely different.
The timing, dude, no doubt. Yeah.
Or
Yeah, the
they'll
timing
like
on them.
Margaret has this dagger move where he throws a dagger out at you. So you like instinctively block or try to dodge, but as he throws it, he jumps and like slams the ground. So if you don't time it perfectly, you get crushed. So it took me many tries to beat him, and I think is going to be the true skill gate. If that is the first
Yeah.
big real boss, there's gonna be a lot of people like, "Whew, oh, I think I'm done. I played for a good
Yeah.
5-6 hours, but I think I'm out."
Yeah, that boss is definitely harder than Iodex Gundyr, by quite a bit, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, well, why don't we revisit this late this year, and we'll see from an achievement perspective how many people have beat that boss. But yeah, I was the same way. Struggled quite a bit. I was like, wow, they're really mixing up the mechanics here quite a bit, right? And there's more things you can do in Elden Ring, right? Like we said, you've got these kind of magical abilities. Like I got the one with the gigantic sword, right? Which I
Yeah.
was really enjoying. And you can summon, and there's crafting in the game now, which you can use to build things up and stuff. But I think it's going to be a game where you have to, unless you really want to be tough on yourself, you have to utilize all the things that it gives you, right? But as we know with the Souls games, a lot of the things it gives you can be kind of cryptic in how you use them, how's the proper way to use them,
Mm-hmm.
when should I use them. And I think I don't know. I see it coming next month when we're all hyped and we're deep into this game and we're loving it. I just see a percentage of the community kind of outcrying that I tried again and I still can't get into it. I'm getting my ass kicked, and yeah, I see that coming because at its heart, it is still a very Souls-like game. It is
Yes.
Soulsborne.
Yes. It is a departure in some ways, and it does mix up the formula in a lot of meaningful ways.
Yes.
Um, but also it is still a Souls game in the sense that these fights and these encounters demand a lot of you if you want to overcome them. I've also seen some people in the community complaining that things are going to be too easy, that magic is too powerful, that summons are too powerful, and I'm like, just stop. Like, please, like there are so many people who don't need this game to be any harder and will never play these games if they don't change the mechanics. So if you are an edgelord who feels like magic is too easy, summons are too easy, don't use them. All right, be the dude on YouTube who's butt naked with the giant club beating the game if you
I
want.
did that in Souls 3 on my second playthrough. I think I did no summons.
Yeah, it's
Just because I
fun.
want to.
It's
Like, it's
fun.
fun, you accomplish it. But yeah, they don't need to change the game to cater to you. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, I'm not worried that Elden Ring is going to be too easy after playing the network
No,
test. That's not
me
my
neither.
not my biggest concern.
Nope, nope. But yeah, no, man, I'm super hyped. Are you taking any time off for it?
I'm torn. It's one of those things where it's like obviously there's going to be an emphasis for us to like cover it in
Yes.
a media capacity. But I'm
Oh.
almost tempted to be like, peace. I'm taking a couple weeks off, just some me time. I just want to play
Yeah.
Elden Ring and have no work associated with it. I don't want to have to worry about taking screenshots or remembering where shit
No.
is and working on guides for it. I just want to play. So I'm torn. I haven't committed to taking time off, but it's something I keep telling myself that just treat yourself, dude. Maybe you deserve this, all right? You've been working hard. You deserve a little Elden Ring time, you know?
I would say to do it because that's how I was with Halo. I took a lot of time off and dedicated a lot of time to it. But I would say that for someone like yourself, we know these games don't come along very often, right? It's years and years between. So when is the next Elden Ring gonna drop that you can take time off for and truly enjoy? I say do it.
That's kind of where I'm at. Because the last time, when Dark Souls 3 came around, I had a surgery. And so I specifically scheduled my because I had to take at least 3 weeks off of work as
Okay.
part of like the recovery for the surgery. So I specifically scheduled the surgery like a few days before the release of Dark Souls 3. So I had 3 straight weeks of just recovery time to sit and play Dark Souls 3.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm not
Yeah,
having any surgeries this time around, so I can't get away with that. But
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to as well. I'm actually in a place right now where I don't know if I'll be able to, but if I can, I want to because I'm a huge Horizon guy too. I'm super looking forward to Horizon on PS5.
February,
And
dude. My
those come out
God.
a week apart. What'd
Oh
you
no,
say?
February, dude.
Oh, I know.
February.
It's a mess. It's a mess. And I'm reviewing Elden Ring, which makes it even tougher because, as you know, when you're reviewing a game, it's like you have embargo. You have to play it kind of a different way. Like your point, I wanted to be able to just sit down and enjoy it my way. You know what I mean? But now I'm gonna have to review it and take screenshots, like everything you said. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about this, especially as Horizon comes out a week prior. So I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. It's gonna be a mess.
Thankfully, I'm not reviewing Elden Ring. That's one I wouldn't even volunteer. As much as I love Elden Ring, like I wouldn't want to do that to myself in terms of how I want to play it. Because I did
Yeah,
Tales of Arise, like that filled my big massive RPG review quota for a while. Because it's like
that's a big
playing
game.
60 hours of a game in like 4 days is it ain't ideal, bro. It ain't
No.
ideal.
No, no, yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But regardless, yeah, this is my most. Is it your most anticipated game of the year? Like full stop.
Full stop. It was my
Yeah,
most
me too.
anticipated game last year too. Like
It was for me, other than Halo, which I've already preached about. But yeah, it is this year, bar none. I can't wait, man. We're a month away, man. Month away.
nothing.
5 weeks.
I know a lot of people are like pumped on Starfield, and I'm excited for it. Like I'm excited about the prospect of a new Bethesda IP and to see what that team can do with some fresh ideas. But my Starfield hype is microscopic compared to my Elden Ring hype.
Me too. Me too. Hey, exact same thing you said. Like I know what that team can do. New IP, the promise of Skyrim in space, and all the little euphemisms we say about it. But I haven't seen a lot of Starfield. We don't know how it's going to launch. Obviously, I hope it's utterly amazing, and it could be. But Elden Ring, I know is going to be amazing. I've played it. It's nearly here, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to offer
Let's
an experience unlike anything else. So I'm ready.
Okay, beautiful. I wanted to again spend a little time with you to just wax poetic about why Elden Ring's gonna slap hard. And again, if it's not for you, that's cool. That's totally fine. But it's gonna hit. It's
The
gonna hit in
game
a
is
big way.
it's gonna be interesting to see how well it sells. I mean, we know it's gonna blow the doors off, but I'm curious to see just how well it sells. I think it's gonna be huge.
Hit me with a figure. If you're guessing week one sales for Elden Ring across all platforms, how you feeling?
Week 1. Uh, man, I don't have any context. You threw me on the spot. I have no context here.
Sekiro
Um,
sold 5 million, over 5 million in like a year and a half, if I remember right. Maybe 2 years ish
okay,
for
thank you.
context.
That helps a little bit. So I'm gonna go. Let's go. First week.
First week.
I'm
First
gonna
week.
say I'm gonna say it breaks 5 million in the first week.
I'm with you. I think 5 million, that's what I'll throw it in as well. That's my estimate for week one, 5 million.
Okay. Yeah, I think it really will. I just play any of their previous games.
I'll even go further. I'll say 10 over 10 million year one.
I'm with you. I'll agree. Yeah,
That's where I'm
yeah.
at.
Which would be amazing for a game and developer who's known of making challenging games that some people can't really overcome, right? So I
Yeah.
wonder where's Sekiro now? Where's Souls 3 now? Like, I'm curious. I haven't looked at those.
Because there was like a milestone for the Souls franchise as a whole has sold over like 25 million kind of recently.
Yeah,
Let me actually pull it up real quick.
30